All right. Good morning. Got my coffee ready. Spinning it right now. Tried with a Coca-Cola, see what happens.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3.
2-1. 2-1.
Talk Radio.
Now we can see a new world coming into view. A world in which there is a very real prospect of a new world order. The new world order does not mean surrendering our national sovereignty or forfeiting our interests. He took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States of America. By some, he's been called controversial. How can I convince you when your ears refuse to hear? You turn your heart away from me each time that I draw near. Your eyes refuse to meet with mine, they glance away in fear. As if you should know, your reception is sincere. Now, keep in mind that some of my guests have been Homeland Security or FBI saying, why are you going to the Clay Douglas show? My message to those guys, if they're listening this morning, is go get a cup of coffee. Maybe you'll learn something. We both took the same oath, to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I don't recall there being an expiration date on that. Well, it doesn't show how could I contain this anguish and this pain, knowing that your eyes are blinded by the lies. He is the free American Clay Douglas. Catch the Free America weekdays at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern. Every time I think about the damage that's been done, the anger wells inside me till I'm almost overcome. I want to tear the moon down from the sky and drop the sun. For the podcast and more details, visit www.freeamerican.com or catch the podcast by phone by calling 832-999-8621.
Alright, breaking up just a little bit there, but good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hour. I am your host, I am Clay Douglas. And my guest today is Chuck Smith, a fellow Texan. And Chuck, it's great meeting you. You've got some films out that are just going viral up on YouTube. They're also up on the Free American. And you've got two out there. One says, "We are not your enemy." And that one's addressed to the people of the world. And the second one, which is the one I still have up here, of course, both of them are still up on my Facebook site, which is Free American 69, along with some other videos that are really important and really relevant today. But you also have one that's dedicated to the elite banksters. We are your enemy. And I'm looking at a picture of Netanyahu, who claims Iran wants to wipe Israel off the map, and who is currently wiping Palestine off the map. Hello, Chuck Smith. How are you?
Good morning, Clay. How you feeling this morning?
Well, I feel great. I feel great. I'm really a poor advertisement for the medical industry. When the doctors tried to kill me after my accident failed 10 years ago, I walked out of the hospital and I said, "Be sure he takes this medication. Be sure he takes this medication." I said, "The only medication I need is a joint and a Harley." So I was really excited. I was living in Arizona and they passed medical marijuana, Chuck, and I did time in Texas back when it was 99 years. They caught you with a joint. I had a little more than a joint, and they caught me and put me in jail for it. If I'd been over in New Mexico, I would have, or in Colorado, that would have been a misdemeanor. But whoa, 99 years you're facing. You're looking at 99 years here, Clay. It was a prime example of exactly what's happening to America today, in my opinion, called the prison industrial complex. I spent a year and a half in prison building more prisons, building more cells for more people so they could bust more people. Ayn Rand had it right when she said, the government has no control over an honest citizen, so they got to make criminals out of us.
Well, that's sure the hell we were headed with the private prison industry. It's just crazy how much money they give Congress to to write more laws and to have mandatory sentencing, and to guarantee them nonviolent prisoners, for their slave labor.
That's right. Hey, rob a liquor store, go to jail, and go to work for IBM for 25 cents an hour. I mean, aren't we doing the same thing that we accused China of doing? They're producing those products with slave labor. Well, in Arizona, they had an advertisement said, we make more than just license plates. We're actually we're making this, we're making that. IBM is paying these the prisoners 25 cents an hour to produce products for them.
Yeah. Well, they have the nerve to say it's not slave labor. They volunteer to work. Well, you know what it's like. You're sitting in an 8x10 cell, 23 hours a day, 7 days a week. Yeah, you'll volunteer for damn near anything just to get out of that box for a while.
Yeah, I volunteered for AA, and I'm not a drunk.
No, there's no place in the United States, no part of our lives that you can't see government intrusion now. Absolutely none. You look around your house, go outside, anything you do, just look around and think of where the government is in it. It's everywhere. We are in a fascist state now.
I got to ask you about that because I'm a little confused. I'm a little confused. maybe you can straighten it out for me. I joined the army to fight communism. I volunteered for Vietnam, and by the way, there was no Gulf of Tonkin incident anymore, and any more than there was I'm sorry, what?
That's all.
They manufacture these wars, but I got the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto here. Abolition of private property, heavy progressive income tax, abolition of all rights of inheritance, confiscation of property of all immigrants and rebels. Whoa, that's marijuana in your pocket there, son. Whoa, we got to take your car. We got to take your house. And central banks number 5. Government control of communications and transportation, government control ownership of factories and agriculture, government control of labor, corporate farms, regional planning, can you say Agenda 21, and government control of education. Now, every plank on that Communist Manifesto is intact in America today, but the control of and Thomas Jefferson warned us, if you ever allow a private bank to issue your money, the banks and the corporations that will spring up around them will leave your children homeless in the land we conquered. I'd say that's a pretty good description of fascism. What do we got?
Well, is there any industry today that has not become fascist?
No.
There's no such thing as a free market anymore. Look at the price of silver. To protect the banking industry, they're selling, so much paper silver into the market, and it's the United States government doing it. They've had to quit investigating J.P. Morgan for manipulating the precious metals markets when they found out that they were telling the truth. They were just selling on the behest of a client. When the client turned out to be the United States government, they had to drop the investigation. It took 4 years to get to that point, by the way. 4 years later of this big investigation into manipulation of the precious metals market by J.P. Morgan just died when they suddenly said, oh yeah, well, by the way, it is legal for the United States government to do it, and the United States government is our client. Bingo. That's the end of it. So, oh, by the way, anybody who's looking at these charts and thinks these people who read these charts, these gurus telling you what to buy, when to buy, bullshit. If you can punch one button and change the price of any stock or any precious metal, that throws all that chart work out the window.
That's now you get a lot of people in the patriot movement. We got some patriot stations out there that are making money off of selling you gold or silver. And isn't the price of gold determined by a Rothschild raising a little flag on his desk in the city of London? So we saw, and this is just in one of the videos I just put up, talks about Roosevelt ordering Americans to turn in all their gold, take it to the banks for $16 an ounce, and as soon as the banks had all the gold, they doubled the price. And of course now they've just raised it and raised it and raised it. So this whole gold standard thing is that's as much a scam as the IRS.
Well, I believe in owning precious metals. I think now is a really good time to buy, in particular silver. I mean, we're ready and running for something. I can't think of anywhere else to put Federal Reserve notes. If you have some extra and you've already got your preps in place, now I'm a big prepper. I believe everybody ought to have a minimum of a year's food. Medicinals. I'm a prepper. But once a basic prep's in place, I can't think of anywhere else to put excess Federal Reserve notes other than precious metals. And what are you going to do with it? If you got $10,000 and you let it sit there, it's going to evaporate. So have something for your money.
I agree with that. I've got
other than precious metals, I don't know anywhere else to put excess funds.
I've got some links up on my website for carrot bars, which is basically you can invest in some gold and carry it around in your wallet. They're issuing little gold embedded in your cards. But not doing commercials here. Everything that's happening is basically a scam by the bankers, isn't this? This whole New World Order that we're seeing, the North American Union, the European Union, the African Union, the Soviet Union, it was all a scam to get control. Basically, what I think they have done is they have advanced the art of slavery to the point the slaves don't even know they're slaves, because you're watching television, you're watching, you're being they don't call it programming for nothing, Jack.
That's a good point. Well, look at the United States. I mean, we take a look at all the comms we've got: Northcom, Southcom, Westcom, Eastcom, Africom. In your face com. I mean, we have all these military commands all over the world. Now we're headed for World War. They are going to pull us into a war, and we're going to get our butts handed to us. By the way, there is no way that we can win a war against China. Not a chance. There's just no way. Their technology is better than ours. We don't even have our new fighter aircraft can't fly in the rain. It kills its pilots. It has no vision to its six. We're talking about the F-35. This thing that cost more than the gross domestic product of Australia is a complete failure. They can't even do mock dog fights with it. because it kills its pilots. And so we are totally screwed. We're headed for some very, very bad times. You know, what do you think? What's your opinion on the one way that we can turn this around? I have an idea how we can turn this around, but it's the only chance we have. What do you think we could do to turn things around, Clay?
Well, a little over 10 years ago, and this may have been the reason they tried to kill me back in May of 2004, I asked myself, now, I've been reporting on this whole New World Order takeover for 20 years. And I kind of got tired of it. I said, well, you know, how did we make it 100 years ago? How did we make it 200 years ago? How did we make it 1,000 years ago? And a friend of mine, Richard Kelly Hoskins, said the foundation of every civilization is the self-sufficient family farm. And I've told people anytime a communist regime takes, or our fascist regime, it don't matter, that's like trying to determine the difference between communism and fascism is kind of like trying to determine the difference between a Republican and a Democrat. They're both two wings of the same bird. And the bird's a global vulture, it ain't a friggin' eagle. And so I came up with a plan called the Liberty Villages concept, which was started out with the idea of restoring the family farm. And I figured if you could grow your own food and generate your own power from everything God gave us, the wind and the sun and the technology we have today, and if you didn't have the government here, we'd have a magnetic generator running and providing all the power for your home, sitting in your garage, not eating any fuel and keeping your electricity turned on. But that's illegal by under the U.S. government standards now. And I think that is the only way. Become self-sufficient, become independent, again, like we were 200 years ago. We settled this country with windmills and wagons. We grew our own food, we raised our own animals, and I don't see any other way to, and you know, again, Jefferson words, corporations, the banks and the corporations that spring up around them. They're draining you, they're sucking your money off of you. You know, Obama's idea of a greening America is to sell the top of that mountain, lease the top of that mountain to a Chinese company so they can put windmills on there. They send the power down the pike, and then they charge you a little bit more money for it because, you know, they got more hands in your pocket. That's my only answer.
I take a little wider view.
Okay.
The only power that they have over us is the gun. Ultimately, any tyranny, it has to be done with a gun. And if we can stop the guns from being pointed at us, then they have no power, the people who are doing this to our economy. We're going to go through some bad times. You can't destroy an infrastructure and an economy without a lot of people literally starving to death. That's coming. But we've got to get the guns turned away from us. And the way we do that is exactly what you're doing and what I'm doing and all the bloggers are trying to do. But we also need to get out and talk to the 95% more. We have a bad habit of talking to each other all the time. We're going out and finding ways to get into the public and getting in their face, so to speak. The fully informed jury movement, which has started back up again real big right now. Getting down to the courthouse, handing people things about the fully informed jury. While you're there, hand them a copy of the Constitution and talk to them about the NDAA, which is a great wake-up call for people. If you tell them about the NDAA, most Americans do not know about the NDAA. But you tell them about it. Now, if we go to the police and anytime you see a cop, you stop and talk to him and say, hey, you know about the NDAA? They don't. And you tell them about the NDAA. And then you point out, when the first patriot, when Clay disappears, don't be the cop who pulls me over and says, sir, step out of your truck. Because if Clay disappears, Smithfix is not going to get out of his truck when a cop says, get out of your truck. Because I'm going to assume I'm going to be black bagged out the back door county and disappeared, you know, with no judge, no jury, nothing. And you tell them, you don't want to be wearing a badge when that happens. You know, so that's how we turn the guns away from us, is talking to them. But we have to have enough Americans aware that they talk to the police. You know, that when they go to church, and this nice cop who goes to church, and I don't believe there's any such thing as an honorable cop, to be honest, but they talk to that police officer at church and point out to him, hey, what is this about? What are you going to do when?
Let's elucidate on that just a little bit, because there's possibly somebody listening to us that don't understand what the NDAA is. Explain that to us.
Okay. The 2012 NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act. The National Defense Authorization Act is where they fund the military. Okay, it is a funding mechanism for our military. It has now become the dumping ground for tyranny. Under the 2012 NDAA, an American citizen can be arrested, held without charge forever, murdered, tortured, sent to another country. I mean, all these things disappeared, and it's perfectly legal in the United States today. And every time the NDAA comes up annually, and every time it comes up, they add something new. The 2014 NDAA has now given the military the equivalent of a fusion center on a massive scale. Now, there's no arrest warrant issued under the NDAA to pick up a citizen. If the president or someone in his administration or the military, there's no judge, no jury, there's no habeas corpus. There's no saying, hey, you know, bring the body to me is what habeas corpus means. And a judge says, bring the body to me because I want to see what's going on here. You do not have that right any longer. And this is if you are involved with associated forces of a suspected terrorist or a belligerent. The terms they use to qualify for detention under the NDAA are so smorphous, there's no specific anything to it. It's purely a matter of opinion. If the president thinks you're a potential terrorist, you're toast.
Now, let me. This is pretty interesting to me because when I sat in my canal side home in Miami and watched what happened at Waco, I was pretty outraged, and I swore to my wife I will never sit back and watch something like this happen again. Where's the Texas Rangers? Where's the Highway Patrol? Where's the sheriff? Why are they letting them do this? And I was so outraged at the press for trying to somehow justify it. The government had to do that. They had to kill those 17 little children to save them from a child molester. I did two things. I went out and started the militias around the country, and specifically in New Mexico. I did it in the governor's office. No terrorist organization there, but they tried to make me into a terrorist. The ADL, Anti-Defamation League, Southern Poverty Law. Clay Douglas started a militia. He was in the militia. He was a, you know, and so they tried to demonize me the same way they're trying to demonize our veterans, our returning veterans, right now with the Authorization Act, all part of my book, Mystery Babylon, The New World Order Unveiled. And they're setting us up for a civil war. They're setting us up for this. Now, 10 years ago, I filmed the first Homeland Security meeting, and Colonel John Brinkerhoff was lecturing law enforcement at Sandia Labs in Albuquerque, and said, "We're in for a long war. This war is going to be fought on American soil. It may go longer than the Cold War. And the enemy's weak. The enemy doesn't have planes. It doesn't have helicopters. It doesn't have tanks. So they're going to use unconventional methods. In case of a single outbreak of smallpox in a major metropolitan area, a natural disaster like an earthquake along the New Madrid fault line, we'll need 400,000 well-armed, well-trained, organized, disciplined troops to control the American people, because some of them just won't follow orders. Now, 10 years ago, when I referred to 9/11 as an exaggerated case of Jewish lightning, and pointed out that no plane hit the Pentagon, and put building number 7 on the cover of my magazine, they tapped my phones, and that story had broke the month before in April of 2004, May 2004. They tapped my phones, arranged an accident. When the accident failed to kill me, they ran me to the hospital. They sent an ambulance, took me to the hospital, and kept me drugged for 3 months. So my magazine went down, my radio show went down, and this is before they had the NDAA. So this is now they can do it to anybody, anytime.
Well, we're the first nation to ever codify into law that you can disappear a citizen. No country with the rule of law and a constitution has ever written into the code of law that you could disappear a citizen. They did, but it was illegal. Now it is legally, and to lawyers who rule this country, between the bankers, that makes it a distinction. Oh, well, it's legal, so we can do it now. There's no such thing as lawful in the country anymore. Now it's, is it legal? And that's why we are in a police state. Go out and jump in your car and tell me you're not looking in your rearview mirror to see if the Gestapo and to cage you for your slave labor. We are in a police state.
I have told people, if a man with a badge can walk up and go, "Whoa, what's that in your pocket? Is that marijuana? Is that cocaine? What is that? What is that powder? What do you got? Whoa, you're going to do time." You live in a police state. The whole war on drugs preceded the war on terror, and the war on drugs was a war on the American people too. We've got more of our citizens in prison right now than they did in the Soviet Union, than they do in China. With 3 times our population, we got more Americans in prison than they do anywhere else in the world.
Well, Americans are just such bad people.
I'd say that's a police state.
Go ahead, Clay, I'm sorry.
I would just say that's a police state. Yes, you're absolutely right about this. And I do know people that are trying to turn this around. The militias are still forming here in Texas. The Texas State Militia is working with the sheriff in every county. There are sheriffs, 300 or more, that have joined Richard Mack's Constitutional Sheriffs and Police Officers Association. And so there are people out there that are trying to turn this around and get the police where they belong, on our side here. You know, I've never stolen anything. I've never robbed anybody. I've never hurt anybody. I've never killed anybody. I didn't have to go to Vietnam. They tried to kill me before I got there. So I'm not a criminal. And yet they're trying to criminalize me because, oh, you're a member of a militia? Oh! Every able-bodied male in America from the ages 18 to 45 is the militia, can be called up by the governor.
Well, I believe that people need to be prepared. I do want everybody to be very cautious about militias, because by the 3rd person who joins, you've got a Fed in there somewhere.
Yes, sir.
And
exactly what I told people. Exactly what I told people for 10 years, or over 10 years. If you're joining a militia, there's 10 people in it, and you haven't known them all your whole life. You know, you're.
Well,
let me take a call here. Let me take a call and see what this is here. Maybe we'll maybe we got a caller. Let's see. Hello, who's this? What can I do for you?
Hello, Clay Douglas.
Yes, sir.
How you doing? This is Patrick Clay.
Hello, Patrick. You're live. We're talking with Chuck Smith here. You're live on the air.
Oh, I didn't know you were on the air.
Yes, sir. I'm on the air every time this morning. This time of morning, every morning, 5 days a week.
When do you get off the air?
I will be off the air in an hour and a half. You can call me back, sir.
Okay, thank you, Clay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, I'm sorry, Chuck.
Oh, that's all right. Well, the danger in being involved, because as you and I both know, they're going to be infected instantly. And I just found out the other day, and I really have to confirm this. I didn't realize that a conspiracy charge has a statute of limitation. Charge people with conspiracy. So they put a Fed in there, or a paid informant that they busted, and to keep himself out of prison, he sets people up. And all he says, some night, sitting around getting drunk and talking about, well, we could do this, so woof, woof, woof. One man goes out and buys one bullet. Now I'm all charged with conspiracy to whatever. A good example is the Hutari militia. Okay, they were idiots. They were out there making videos of running around and fighting the UN in the woods and shooting guns and all that. Well, when they finally got, after, 3 years of destroying these people's life, it got before a judge, and the judge went, this is entrapment. This is completely fabricated, and threw the entire thing out. But did you see that in the news? No, all you see is these, this big bad militia. They go for the headline, and that's all they care about. If they get the headline, and then after that, it doesn't matter. But if you don't go to prison, you're at least going to be financially destroyed. So be very, very careful about anyone who's in a militia. The minute they start talking militant, about aggressive, going to after somebody, get the hell away from them. They're probably a Fed. And we all have common sense and knows everybody has to have their own line in the sand. When you personally are going to stand up or not. But when people start getting too bombastic, you've got some guy that is juicing things up, be very, very careful. Throw him in a swimming pool and see if anything shorts out. So if you're going to talk real plans, by the way, go swimming. It's real hard to get a digital recording of anything when everybody's swimming in water.
The man that started the militias before me is a man by the name of J.B. Campbell, and I've had J.B. on my line on my show a number of times. He was in the he was over in Africa fighting on the against the rebels in what has become Zimbabwe. And he said, I've got a part of his quote on my site. He said, we are under deadly attack by federal forces, mainly the NSA, FBI, ATF, DEA, TSA, and CIA, among many other secret police agencies. In fact, there are 73 federal agencies that have militarized SWAT teams with a license to kill us. It's time for the American Defense Party to lead the defense of whatever we have left to defend. A simple plan. Here is a 3-part plan to dismantle the police state and prevent martial law. First part, neighborhood watch. Second part, civilian police review boards. Third part, bring the military into the resistance. And I think that's a pretty good plan. He's a little bit more militant. I want to recruit the police out there. I want to educate them. When I gave a lecture over the years, I said, if there's any FBI, CIA out there, you're welcome here, because we both took the same oath to defend this Constitution. You need to know what's going on. So, JB's response is, if they come after me, if they come after you, just shoot the bastards.
Well, when it comes right down to it, when they come for you, that's your two choices. I mean, if you want to go be a slave, or do you want to die a free man?
That's right.
Because initially, a lot of us are going to die. The guys who were the point of the spear, us with the big mouths, so to speak.
Yes, sir.
We're the force multipliers, the ones who will go around and bang on their neighbor's door and say, okay, it's time. We've been talking to them all this time, telling them it's coming, and they'll have to try and eliminate the force multipliers. So a lot of us are going to die. But that's what it takes for liberty. We had all this eminent domain abuse, stealing people's property to give it to a multi-billionaire so that he can build a sports stadium and pay more taxes, or a mall or a whatever. Well, they're going to pay more taxes on that property than you are, so they steal your property, and he makes billions of bucks. Well, no American has died to protect their right to own their property. And until that happens, if an American had stood on his front porch and said, you're going to have to kill me to steal my property, we would not have the outrage, would have stopped it.
Well, it will get to that. I mean, I think it already has. Look at Gordon Call. Look what they did to him and his son Yori. I mean, Yori's still in prison. Look what they did to Randy Weaver. And look what they did to the families in Waco. I mean, that was what set me off. That was what set me off. And today I still don't understand why every American isn't totally outraged by that.
Well, you look at there's so many ways that they can take your property. We now have what's called the International Building Maintenance Code, which people aren't real familiar yet, something I have to revisit and talk about a lot. There's a woman in Florida who was evicted from her home for living off-grid.
In Florida,
she has everything she needs in the home. It's normal living, but she lives off-grid. And they evicted her from her home because she wasn't paying an electric bill. And so they come in and they use what's called the International Building Maintenance Code. See, we used to have local codes in the United States. You had the United States Building Code, the United States Civil Code. Now they're all international. International building codes, international. This building maintenance code breaks out to just this. One man in a town, under whatever jurisdiction that they have, can evict you from your home using that purely on his opinion. That's it. He says, your house is unlivable. And that's what they did to that woman in Florida. It's your house is unlivable. He'd never even been in home. And this is a test case to see the reaction of the American people. And it has not, nobody's defending her, and she's not standing up for her rights well enough as far as I'm concerned. Should have been like, well, get your guns, drag me out. I'm that guy. She should go to the sheriff and say, I want you to come to my house and walk through this house and tell me why you're going to allow this man to tell me that I have to be kicked out of my home. But it's a test case. This is the first case I've seen where they actually use the International Building Maintenance Code to evict someone. When they want your house, or they want you out of your house, they will use that code. And you have no legal recourse. You really don't.
Well, that's why I believe they were coming after me so hot and heavy, was because the whole Liberty Village plan, hey, we can buy a TP for $5,000, set it up on a self-sufficient family farm, house 6 veterans that may be homeless now, so they can defend the place, so they can pull the weeds, so they can milk the goats, and we can put a juice box, a solar-powered generator in every house, and they didn't like that. They didn't like that. That was making people, individuals, families too self-sufficient, and putting them in a situation where they could help defend, I guess, somebody coming in. I mean, I'm the kind of guy, I went to the city council when they wanted to zone my little town in New Mexico. I had a 2-house town in New Mexico. What communists tried to write is trying to push this. Some guy sitting beside me held his hand up. I said, what are you trying to do? Get somebody killed? You want to come out here and tell ranchers that have been out here for 100 years what they can do on their property? You want to zone them? You know, that's bullshit. It ain't going to happen. And you ain't going to put a meter on my well either.
Oh, yeah, you got to love it. They claimed all the water underneath our homes now.
And,
Not
only that, in Colorado, you can't even put a rain barrel under your roof to catch any water without going to jail.
That's rich. That's rich. And have two 1,500-gallon water tanks sitting behind my house, and I live in town. I live on a corner lot, got a third of an acre, live on a corner lot. I've got, let me see, 4 250-gallon propane tanks. I've got two 1,500-gallon water tanks. You know, yeah. You know, go ahead and tell me I can't catch my water. And what are you going to do? Come shoot holes in my tank? No.
When the ADL put out their little brochure, put out a few million copies, listing me in armed and dangerous, I called them up in New York. I said, "Hi, this is Clay Douglas. I just wanted you assholes to know you got something right. I am armed, and you mess with my family or my country, I'm definitely dangerous."
Yeah. Well, this is the thing that we have to make the police understand. This is one of the reasons I do like the original mission of Oath Keepers. You know, that it was designed to educate the police and talk to police and military and veterans, talking to veterans, you know, reminding them of their oath. Where I got banned from Oath Keepers so many times for going after Leos on the forums. The only thing I don't like is they ask. I don't believe in asking our servants to uphold their oath. I don't believe in asking them. I think we ought to talk straight to them and tell them that it's going to be dangerous. That's the difference between me and Oath Keepers. I think we tell them. They tend to ask. I'm not asking. Cross that curb with a weapon coming at my door. I don't care if you're carrying a badge or not. Bottom line, you're a human being with a gun coming on my property to do me harm. It's just that simple, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It should be that simple. Now, Oath Keeper, it's interesting that Stuart Rhodes will not come onto my show. Because I think Stuart Rhodes may be part of the controlled opposition. And this is another thing that I have a huge difficulty with. You know, this whole anti-Semitic thing. It's this is a trick we always use. and Alexander Solzhenitsyn, he said, no, all the Bolsheviks weren't Jews, but without the Jews there wouldn't have been any Bolsheviks. You know, they hide behind the Jewish people the same way they're hiding behind the Judeo-Christians.
That's why we have to be real specific. Whenever I don't even use the word Jew much, unless I'm very, very specific. I use Zionist, and I use the nation state of Israel. The other two uses of the word Jew are the race and the religion. And I don't care what your religion is. I don't care what your race is. I do care about a political construct called Zionism, and I do care about a nation state called Israel, which is an absolute bane to the world, which is a cancer that we planted in the Middle East. We planted that cancer.
That's right.
They're always aggressive. I mean, never forget the liberty. When I point to that, when people want to support Israel, I say, look at the attack on Liberty, the ship, the vessel called Liberty, how thoroughly that was covered up. Well, now everybody knows Liberty was a false flag, committed by Israel to attack a naval vessel, an American naval vessel, in international waters, to try and blame Egypt, to get us into that war.
We were 3 minutes from dropping an atomic bomb on Egypt.
Yeah.
3 minutes.
I mean, and then when it turned out, oh gosh, they didn't sink it, and they got caught, the entire United States government went into cover your ass routine for Israel. So the nation state of Israel, And whenever I use the word Israel, I always say nation state, because people look at the Bible and they say, oh, look, we're supposed to defend Israel. Israel, not a nation state. It's a bloodline, the bloodline of David. Well, the bloodline of David is all over, and primarily in the Middle East. Every Palestinian has as much bloodline of David blood as any, quote, Jew.
That's right. And the Jews, remember the Bible
There is
says,
no.
the Bible says, beware the Jews who say they're Jews, but are not, or of the synagogue of Satan. Genetically, the 90% of the Jews out here, actually the Palestinians are closer to the tribe of David genetically than any of the Ashkenazi Jews out there. The Ashkenazi Jews came from the Black Sea area of Russia. They were called Khazars, a warlike people that adopted Judaism.
Well, yeah, it was an interesting story how they became, quote, Jews. They were first off the Khazarians converted to Judaism as a nation. They were stuck between the Christians and the Muslims, and everybody was fighting. The Muslims and the Christians were fighting like crazy. And if you were one or the other, you were going to get attacked, and they were in between. Well, the king looked at it and went, what do we do here? So they became Jews, because the Jews were traders. They didn't have a set land, but they were a people. But they were traders, and they lived everywhere. So he did what was actually the smart thing and said, okay, we're Jews. And so nobody was at war with the Jews, so they became, quote, Jews. They also happen to be very good with the Khazars, very good with money, very dishonest, very corrupt bunch of people. And that's where we have the Khazarian Jew. So it gets real deep, you know, and it's hard for people to understand just how ubiquitous our problems are in the world today. And that's why we've got to get out there and talk to the masses.
Well, you know, that is exactly, Chuck, what I've tried to do with the Free American Magazine. I started it 20 years ago. They didn't like it. They tried to kill me. They tried to stop me, and they were successful for 10 years. They broke me financially. I sold everything I had to try to bring the Free American back, and I failed. Because, and I've got the whole story in this last issue of the Free American, how I had my motorcycle magazine worth $1 million. I had it sold to a publicly traded company. And then suddenly everyone in the company had been contacted and told how anti-Semitic I was.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it even goes back even further than that. One of our important people here in Texas was a guy named Billy Saul Estes, and my father-in-law got kicked out of government for accepting gifts from him as Assistant Secretary of Agriculture. And he was also a part of me losing my wife and my family after my accident. If you go back to him, I'll disown you, my wife was told. So it goes deep, and you mentioned the USS Liberty. There's also, there was a president that tried to stop these bankers, and I carry one of his $5 bills around in my wallet. It's got a red seal on it. It's issued 1963, and it says United States Note, issued by Executive Order 1111-0 by Kennedy. And let's see, what's the first act that Johnson did after Kennedy was assassinated? On the plane going back to Washington, he recalled all that money that Kennedy issued. And he also recalled the planes that were going to help the USS Liberty. So I think LBJ was working for Israel, working for the Mossad, and has never did a thing besides send 58,000 of my brothers to get slaughtered in Vietnam, kill 3 million Vietnamese farmers that were never a threat to us, So that's you know, that's and what do we had after that? George Bush, who organized all the drug running into this country under Operation Watchtower, him and Ollie North. And then we had Bill Clinton that gave away all of our, started NAFTA and GATT and murdered the children. It was behind the killing of the children in Waco. What do we got here?
Well, I get a kick out of people who go after. We're getting some feedback here.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, get a little bit of feedback through my headset.
Yeah, I'm trying. It's the Fusion Center has stepped in and trying
Yeah,
to.
I had some trouble last night with my Skype when I was on air. My Skype went down. It hardly ever does, but it went down last night for a little bit. I had to call back into my own show. Fortunately, I had a guest who was pontificating at the time, so I don't even know I was gone. But I don't know. You were talking about the sheriffs that are starting to stand up. If you ever manage to get any of them on air, I need to go ahead and try and get them to come on air with me too. I want to ask them why they don't get together. 5 or 6 sheriffs. You'll notice none of them are from a major metro. None of the sheriffs that are getting involved are from a major metro. But if you get 5 sheriffs from these smaller counties to go to the larger metro and stand in front of the sheriff's department and call that guy a traitor, to call him out, that would be effective. I'm a little bit leery of Sheriff Mack, because when he was running for office here in Texas this last year, he endorsed Romney, or 2 years ago now. He endorsed Romney, and Romney said he would sign the NDAA. So when Sheriff Mack did that, pretty much hurt his credibility with me a lot. And now he's gone back to organizing the sheriffs, but we've already seen the color of his stripes. Push comes to shove, I would not trust Sheriff Mack.
Well, again, this whole Israel issue, the clouds are thinking, I guess. And there's a friend of mine, there's Paul Topetti. He runs a band called Poker Face, and he has this Freedom Palooza over in near Philadelphia once a year. And this last year, he invited Sheriff Mack and he invited Larry Pratt to come there and speak. And neither one of them would go. Neither one of them would show up because he's anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitic.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Huh. Well, they're worried about building their, unfortunately, the problem with organizations is that they very often, they start out as a liberty idea organization, and then they start getting a lot of donations and money, and then they start worrying about their image to the greater public, and they start watering down and worrying about controversy, and they'll skirt the truth or ignore certain issues because, well, that's not what everybody thinks. Well, didn't we form these things to educate the people again, to change their thinking, to show them where they're wrong? To ride along with a false meme is to be part of the problem. That's why I don't know if Sheriff Mack has gotten on Republic Broadcast Network or not, but I don't think he'll ever go, because that's a radio channel that I happen to like, because they have people on there who tell the truth about Israel, about the nation state of Israel and the Zionists. And to tell the truth when it comes to Israel and the Zionists, makes you untouchable by a lot of people in the liberty movement. Well, we don't want to go there because the Christians think this. Well, educate the Christians.
I've said, if you call it, if you consider yourself a Judeo-Christian, you might as well say I'm a satanic Christian. Thank you.
Well, I never tell people whether I'm a Christian or not, because when somebody goes to touting the Bible to me, especially on air, I tend to shut them down pretty quickly. If the beginning of your argument starts with the Bible says, if that's the basis of an argument, I'm not going to go there. Now, you can say, well, just look how accurate the Bible is turning out to be right now. That's a good point. But when somebody starts thumping the Bible and using it as the basis for an argument, I'm sorry, now you're asking me to believe your religion over my common sense a lot of times.
Well, you know, I've said,
the Romans 13 Christians.
I've said that the Constitution, our Bill of Rights, actually takes care of that. You know, so if you want to hug a tree, well, maybe I'll loan you my tweezers to pull the splinters out. You know,
Right.
if you want to bang your head against that wailing wall, knock yourself out. Knock yourself out. I'll watch. Thank you.
Oh, you'll have to beat our politicians there. I mean, you have to push Rand Paul and everybody else out of the way to get to the wall.
That's right. And John Songbird McCain, he's got his little hat on your film. On your film, right there up on freeamerican.com. Freeamerican.com. You know, what choice did we have between John McCain supporting the state of Israel and Mitt Romney? He's got everyone that's working for Clear Channel was recruited from the Mossad.
Well, you know, I want to find somebody who kind of, I just thought it was just a friend who does this. I want to write a rap song called "Give Me My Yarmulke." You know, and you know, and I want to do it for Rand Paul is who I want it to be, because Rand Paul to me is the next McCain. I mean, people are like, oh yes, well he says the right thing sometimes, except whenever he says something else. I mean, Rand Paul said that he wanted he was cool with every police officer having a flying drone in his car that was capable of engaging someone with deadly force. Every cop car with a drone that can kill you? Really? So
well, he was a real disappointment to me. He didn't even support his father.
No. Well, but see, this is one thing that I'm not wild about Ron Paul either. I mean, he was the one no vote. He made a lot of noise, you know, the one no vote, Mr. No. But how effective was he? He could have run for governor of Texas and won. But he would have then had to actually back up his bullshit. It was easier to stay in Congress, you know, and retire out of Congress, run for president, suck up all that money and energy, okay, and suck it all away from the libertarians and keep them tied in the two-party paradigm, and then lay down when the Republican Party cheated him. I want to bet with my brother, my brother paid for Ron Paul's election headquarters in Oklahoma City all by himself. You know, and
hold on, we're trying to get back up here.
okay.
Trying to get back up here. They blocked us in my other channel here. Come on. Okay, Skype is not responding at all here. And one other computer here. Trying to get back up here. Okay, come on, guys.
How many platforms are you working on right now?
I've got two computers running. The one on Blog Talk Radio and you are working all right. Wolf Spirit and Crusade is my other one, and it ain't working at all.
Oh man, I hadn't heard of Wolf Spirit. I'm gonna have to check that out. There's a whole lot of people trying to make a difference, you know.
Yeah, and they're fighting us at every standpoint here. Every standpoint. Every point here.
And I'm going to be trying to concentrate more of my time locally. We're so short of time now that if we don't get, around us, the people around us, our city councils involved, one way to do that, by the way, is with PAN, People Against the NDAA. That's the radio show I do on Sunday, is for People Against the NDAA Radio, Panda Radio, on Blog Talk Radio. It's called the Panda Podcast, is what they branded it first. I've renamed it since becoming the host. I like to call it Panda Radio because it's easier to say. But if people were to get involved with Panda and get the resolution that we have, take it to your city council to nullify the NDAA. And a lot of cities across the United States are now nullifying the NDAA at the city and county level, putting the feds on notice that as a minimum, our police won't aid them. But the better resolution is one that the Panda endorses, which really requires imposition. In other words, the police have to actively resist an American citizen being kidnapped. In our current day, Las Vegas got one passed. We've been doing really great. And if you could take that to your city council, take it to your local paper too, and get people thinking about the NDAA and what it is. It's a great intrada to get people thinking. Because once people understand what the NDAA is, they go, that can't be true. And when you show them, you prove it to them, and it's very easy to do, that opens the door for, wait a minute. I mean, if they're that arrogant that they'll pass that, what else are they doing to you, American citizen? But working local, getting, awareness in your town, right around you, is what can keep you alive. As much work as we try and do on the national thing, on national radio, like we're doing now, is great. But that's not going to keep you alive, Clay, and it's not going to keep me alive. However, a police chief who says, wait a minute, you're coming into my town to do what? No, you're not going to pick Chuck Smith up. Yeah, he's a little on the odd side, but you're not going to disappear Chuck Smith on my watch. That's something that's going to keep me alive. I'm not afraid of the teeming hordes. I've got a YouTube out there called You Can't Hide Prepper, Time to Lead, which tells people my prepper philosophy. This was made a long time ago. Walk through my house, showing them my preps, and talking to it, and telling people where I live. Why would I be afraid? I've got neighbors who are going to defend this house, because they know I will help them. And if my neighbors don't stand up for me, well, we're all dead anyway.
Well, that's part of the point that J.B. Campbell was making. Neighborhood watch. We have to do this. They are going to come out and try to kill us. They are going to try to control our food. They're going to try to control what we do here. So, it's, again, one of the, this is pretty much a example of what they're doing here. I've lost one whole computer here. One whole computer just shut down. Now, and on the same thing, on the Wolf Spirit, yesterday they crashed his whole chat room. He didn't get it back till about 7 o'clock this morning. They crashed his whole chat room. We couldn't get on. We couldn't get in. We got that fixed. I got you on. And this will still be recorded. This will still be up on Wolf Spirit, but we're not going out on Wolf Spirit or Crusade right at the moment, because I had one whole computer shut down that was connected to Wolf Spirit. And Chuck, again, the other thing, I've been asking people, I just sent out an email. I've got 9 issues of the Free American that I came back out with after my hard copy magazine ceased to be published after they tried to kill me. And I put that up. On the internet. I figured, well, they used to pay $5 for it in Barnes & Noble. I'd sell 10,000 copies every month. And they paid $5 for it in Barnes & Noble. So I'll bring it back out again. I'll bring it back in for $2.99. And if I can get 10,000 people to buy just one magazine, I got 9 now. I got 9 now. If I can get 10 people or 1,000 people, 10,000 people to buy it like they did a long time ago, the Barnes & Noble took half of that, the distributor took a percentage of it, UPS took a percentage, the post office took a percentage, and now I've got it for $2.99, and we ought to be able to get it out to 10 million people.
It's a digital version.
Digital version, yes, PDF.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely do everything on digital now.
And so you can pull this up. You can get it right off of my website, freeamerican.com. You can buy it for $2.99. Guess what? I'm lucky if I get one order a day. I'm blocked in libraries. I'm blocked at the Fusion Center. Just stopped this whole show. Stopped this whole show on Wolf Spirit. Stopped it on Crusade, which is another broadcasting company out of California. Now we're still able to record on YouTube. We're still recording on Blog Talk Radio, and that will go up on Wolf Spirit in about an hour. And I'm trying to bring that back up. I've tried rebooting my computer to bring them back. I couldn't even get on Skype. I couldn't call them. The whole Skype was down. Now has Microsoft taken over Skype now?
Yep. Actually, yes, they have. I was trying to remember if it was Google or Microsoft. I got a notice that something about my Skype recorder wasn't going to be working anymore since they'd taken it over. And they cut so much grief over that when they decided, oh, wait a minute, because I said no more Skype recorder. I'm done with Skype. And they got a lot of pushback on that. And the third-party applications that work with Skype, they were killing all of those. Now, eventually, they're going to kill it anyway. I mean, we're going to lose the ability to communicate this way. We are, and that's why I want to go more, spend a little bit more time working locally here around Fort Worth, Arlington, and get activities going on here. Because when this shuts down, we better have some friends near us. All of us patriots, we have dozens of friends all across the United States. We just don't have very many around us.
Well, tell you what, if you got room for it, I got a 37-foot fifth wheel that I operate out of. I'll be glad to pull it up there, be near you.
And we can find it when it hits the fan. We'll find a place to park it.
I'm a hell of a shot too, and I'm real hard to kill.
Well, we're not going to be worried about zoning, regulations whenever this hits. We're going to have a lot bigger things to worry about, and so are they. And hey, why is that fifth wheel, parked in the backyard on the grass? They're going to have a lot bigger things to worry about than that. And I don't think there's any way to avoid bullets and blood. Unfortunately, it's just how much. Just how when or do the police stand down? That'll be the deciding factor. Is whether our military and our police stand down, or whether they continue to back, the powers that be. And that's why we have to talk to them now, to point out what Solzhenitsyn.
One of the things that I would like to do, and I could use a little help on it, because I'm just kind of jammed up trying to get the magazine out. I'm bringing it out every 2 weeks now because so much is happening. There's so much is happening now that I can't do it like I used to. It used to take me 30 days to get a magazine ready to go to the printer, another 10 days to get the printer to print it. and then another 10 days to ship it all over the country. So it basically took 2 months to get a magazine out. Now I can bring it out every 2 weeks, and it's got so much information. I've got information in this last issue that should be encouraging to people. They have discovered a new material that is stronger than steel, that's almost indestructible, that conducts electricity better than silicone. It's called graphene. I've got the whole story in this issue of the magazine, and that's why I just did an email out to everybody I could to try to get people to get this and understand, man, that we really got a shot here. We really got a shot here. This thing can be made to. All right, let's see if we got it back here. Hang on a second here.
You need a board up, buddy.
Huh?
You need a board up.
Okay. Stop the music. Stop the music. I'm back. I rebooted the computer. Do I have you now, Dave? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, great. I've still got Chuck Smith with me, and I'll have the recording for you for the whole show after in the next hour or so. But Chuck, this graphene, it's like what copper was to the Stone Age. It's like what steel was to the Industrial Age. It can make the computers faster. It can make the computers indestructible. Hell, they could build. I think they build spaceships out of this stuff. I think that's what our UFOs are made out of. Because it corresponds to somebody that told me they had a UFO crash land, and they got some of the material, and it was flexible. It was lightweight. It was flexible, and they used it to repair a water pump in their house. That was in Socorro, New Mexico. And this graphene, this is the most important story in this issue, January 1st issue of the magazine.
I hadn't heard about that.
Yes, sir. What they did, they took a little bit of carbon off of a pencil and put it on some Scotch tape, put it under a microscope, and they got a Nobel Prize for it. But it ain't making it to your newspaper. It ain't making it to your television set. You can get something about it on YouTube. You can get something about it on the internet while we still got internet. But it makes basically everything else obsolete. I mean, you can make a cell phone out of it and roll it up and put it in your pocket. You know, completely flexible, and it would it's smaller than a human hair. It's about 1 atom thick.
Wow. Is it inexpensive to produce?
It's carbon. It's graphene. It's a building block of
yeah.
It's a building block of the universe, basically. They've gotten down to the atoms here. This is microengineering. This is what do they call it? It's anyway, I got the whole story. This whole story. If nothing else, folks out there, if you go get the January 1st issue of the Free American, that one article, that one story in there is the most important one that you'll probably read. It can change humanity. If it's controlled by the New World Order, we're screwed.
Who holds the patent on it?
It's somebody in I think England or Italy. I'm not sure where he is, but he just got the Nobel Prize for it.
We'll have to see what happens with the patent on it. You know, if he sells a patent out, then we won't see it in anything but weapons. You know, military, their weapons.
Well,
other than that,
I don't know. I mean, I've got as much information as I can get, and I'll be back up. I'll get it back up every update. I'll put it in this issue, the latest issue of the Free American.
we'll have to check that out. That was a fascinating point. Do you think we'll last long enough for it to get into any kind of production? Is the trick? Do we have enough time for any new technologies to make any difference?
Well, somebody told me one time that, Clay, they don't have the power they want you to believe they got. If they did, we'd still be under the Syrian Empire, the Roman Empire, the British Empire. We may still be under the British Empire. I have my doubts about what we are here. I mean, our Social Security is still going into the Queen of England's pockets.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of good evidence that says that the Constitution of the United States was purposely written the way it was, with holes in it, so we'd end up right back where we are today. There's a group trying to go back to the Articles of Confederation, which was never rescinded, by the way. It is still actively a live governmental structure, and they've gone to The Hague and filed, put the, what's that group called? Oh my goodness. Can't recall, but they're trying to when this collapse comes, they want to use the Articles of Confederation rather than the Constitution, and it makes some pretty good arguments for it. I'm trying to remember the name of the organization. But greed is as old as mankind, and accumulated wealth tends to make people flock together, birds of a feather. The uber rich are as incestuous as anything has ever been. I mean, take a look at the Bloodlines of the Illuminati, the book. It's stunning. Absolutely stunning. All these bloodlines are all tied together.
Yeah, matter of fact, the author of that book, Fritz Springmeier, he's out of prison now. He was set up just the same way pretty much Mark Cornicky was set up. Mark from Michigan was set up. And I invited him, I got a hold of him, and I said, want to come on my show, Fritz? Everybody like to know what's happened to you, how you're doing, what's going on. And he was afraid to. He was afraid to come on my show. Just as I said in my intro, I've had my guest approached by the guys in black SUVs. Why are you going on the Clay Douglas show? He's subversive. He's subversive. Trying to scare him off of my show.
It's intimidation. I mean, through fear and intimidation. I mean, that's why I addressed as many issues as I could without going too long on a YouTube. I want to bring out issues that make people think. And they think, what? What did you say? Maybe you get them to go out there and look, and think about it. But we have I just don't know how much time we have, Clay. That's why I'm really wanting people to go local, get involved with Panda, because we can use the NDAA to wake up the American people. We really need to point to the NDAA a lot so that people can understand. Any idiot, when they see the NDAA, there's no denying, the tyranny in our government. It's just in your face, we don't give a damn what you think attitude of our government. I mean, just how blatant do they have to be before people realize that they're a slave? Well, I think people are starting to react to the NDAA. And it is really beginning to percolate up now. As each city that passes a resolution, against the NDAA brings 1,000 people to awareness. When these cities do this, especially if it goes in the local paper, that way 1,000 people are now made aware of the NDAA by putting that in front of a city council. That's effective. You know, that's grassroots, around you effective. Then you build from there. Now that you've got their attention. And with your, you know, and your magazine. You know, if you're working that way, and then they get to reading your magazine, boy, now you made a real difference in your town.
Well, and if we could get the magazine started again, hold on, let me play a little clip here. This is up on my website. Now, again, if you're in a library, you may not be able to get this, but if you can get this, if you can go to freeamerican.com, you can get this show, you can download this show, you can pass it around, and you'll see two videos down, you'll see my guest, Chuck Smith, talking to the elite bankers. Let me do that for just a second here.
To rule the former republic of these United States, for you know your crimes. I do not intend for this to be all-inclusive of the charges for which you should be brought to justice. Time does not permit me the luxury of an all-inclusive indictment. Only those which an average man, a free man, finds most abhorrent and deserving of your arrest, conviction, execution, and eternal damnation. We, the American people, are your enemy.
We, the American people, are your enemy. And by the way, let me tell you, Chuck. I don't know if you're aware of this, but I have the transcripts of both of your videos in this issue of the Free American.
Oh, well, thank you.
And that's one of the reasons I'm telling people this is so important. First of all, you know, that $2.99 helps keep food on my table and gas in the Harley. And if I had the financing that I had from selling 10,000 magazines like I did 10 years ago, I could be doing this across the country. I could be taking this information across the country, this radio show. I've got the ability to load cost about $500 for a juice box. The juice box would fit on the back of my Harley and provide enough power to do this radio show in the middle of Sturgis, in the middle of Austin, anywhere I went. I could set up the juice box, set up a little bit of shelter from the sun, do it in anywhere, and broadcast this whole thing, charge the cell phones, charge the computers, charge the let's see, I got a little modem here that'll fit in my pocket that I can keep charged off of the sun. Be completely independent from the power companies and do this. I mean, we've got to reach the people. I started this magazine, I started this radio show to promote the magazine 20 years ago. It's easier to promote now than it was then, and I don't have to pay Hearst Corporation to cut down trees to make paper. I don't have to pay UPS and for their gas to deliver it. We can do this. It is doable now more than ever if we work together. You know, I one of the things that I get a lot is, but I'm just one man. I'm just one. What can I do? Well, you can do what Chuck Smith has done with his video. You can do what Clay Douglas has done with his magazine by using the magazine, by using the videos. And let me share this with you. I tried to do it in your voice, but the sound wasn't good. So allow me. And this is the transcript from Chuck Smith's video. We are your enemy. We, the American people, are your enemy. Not because we want to put your throat under our boot, not because we want to loot your life savings, not because we are allied with nations, powers, and institutions outside of the constraints of the original Constitution and common law, not because we wish to write laws, rules, and regulations to tax and criminalize you while exempting ourselves from any manner of law. Not because we have written a law that denies you a day in court with a jury of your peers before execution, not because we have prepositioned war materials across the nation in case you object, not because we wish to plunder the wealth of other nations and distribute the booty among our friends and sycophants, not because we wish to destroy that we may then offer salvation, our iron fist encased in a velvet glove, but only for a time. Not because we want to be your enemy. Hold on. Take us offline again. Take us offline again. We're trying to get that back. Hold on, Robert. Try to get this call back. Again, they don't want you to hear this. These are the words of a real American, of a lover of liberty. And okay, I think I've got it back again. Now, this is not because we want to be your enemy, but because you have given us no choice. Through the use of subtle and blatant law, you have systematically destroyed the Constitution of these United States. No, we're not all ignorant of the meaning behind that gold fringe on the flags in our so-called courts of so-called law, nor have we ignored your passing of the massive, unintelligible legislative tomes, largely unread and written by the very industries they are purported to regulate, with the effect that now international corporations yield the power of law, and as such, the gun to enforce and guarantee their profits to the negation of individual liberty and individual choice and the security of the American people. Through lies and deception and deceit and disinformation, you have systematically destroyed our monetary system, necessitating the use of force on our own citizens to use a worthless and worse, a debt instrument as currency, but have killed millions in other nations in an effort to force them to not only use this totally debauched and worthless currency. Through lies and disinformation, you have erected a vast army of tax enforcement and a court of law of its own and a monumental collection of ambiguous and fluid regulations insurmountable by mere citizens, but that can be overseen by an obvious tax cheat, such as the fairness of the system, which was never ratified by the states, a fact acknowledged by but held to be de facto law by a corrupt judiciary. You have caused revolutions to install puppet regimes so your corporate masters could feast on the carcass of nations, installed corrupt and brutal dictators till such time as it was advantageous to you to replace them. Again, more blood on your hands, more profit for the military-industrial complex and commodity corporations, of course, your gods, the bankers. You have stolen trillions of dollars from the American people to bail out corrupt financiers and gamblers of Wall Street. Trillions more of the people's wealth has gone to domestic and foreign banks, and audits of the money printers are denied to hide this duplicity. Trillions more go to corporations, whose ineptitude should have led to their demise, but instead received bailouts, and they did bail out, closing plants here and relocating overseas, our money paying for our people to be thrown out of work. Mussolini, the father of fascism, said that fascism should be more properly called corporatism, the joining of corporate greed and government power over the people. It is a fact now, America is a classic fascist state. You have codified into law for the first time in the human history of written law the power of the executive branch and military to kidnap, torture, and kill a citizen. Merely on your claim of suspicion that they are affiliated with terrorists, thus claiming national security and forced signings of non-disclosure agreements, all involved with the disappearance, are silenced, and an American is just gone, disappeared, by those of you, those who are suspected terrorists. And who are these suspected terrorists? By your own Homeland Security, a partial list reads like the best America has to offer: Christians, veterans, constitutionalists, libertarians, and Austrian economics. This is a powerful piece, Chuck. Did you write all of this?
Yeah, took me about 20 minutes. Well, sometimes you just get on a roll, you know, and, you know, the companion piece to that one, which is We Are Not Your Enemy, was actually the original video. And then I got to thinking about the other one, and I made it, and then I had a couple of misspeaks in it, and I sat on it for a while, didn't have time to remake it, and finally one night I said, oh, what the hell, and I just went ahead and uploaded it, you know. The misspeak that bothered me the most was I called him a national security letter when it should have been a national security agreement when it should have been a national security letter. You know, that kind of small stuff kind of bothers me.
Well, I have that first film. That's on the page before this one. So we've got this one is on this one I was just reading. This one I was just reading is on page 9. On page 8, I have We Are Not Your Enemy, A Message to the World by Chuck Smith. And I've got the links in the Free American for the video so they can see you and hear you doing this of your own. This We Are Not Your Enemy begins, please give me a few minutes of your time, human being to human being, for we are all in peril. I recognize that to many, if not most of the world, the United States of America is seen as a tyrannical and moralist nation. How can I argue with that? I cannot. For it is unfortunately a truth. Those who have control of this once great nation have turned a beautiful and bountiful republic, the very envy of the world for its liberty of the individual and government constrained to its proper limited role in the lives of people, into an oppressive emerging police state and the greatest threat to peace the world has ever seen. For this, we the American people are responsible and will doubtless soon pay dearly, just as every people of a republic turned empire and tyranny has. Our astonishing comforts, born of individual liberties, are responsible and responsibility and morality have given way to apathy, ignorance, and a sense of entitlement. Encouraged by destructive social programs, corrupt schools, media and entertainment industries, we Americans, by vast majority, have become lazy, selfish, obese, and ignorant. We are a war-weary people with an economy on the verge of collapse. The breadlines of the past are being hidden by direct payments from a government desperate to keep the illusion of normalcy, and very much aware that the course has nearly run out. History teaches that when governments cause the collapse of the nation's economy through corruption and greed, they use war as a shield and a distraction, and those who see through this illusion are labeled unpatriotic, subversives, or even today as today, potential terrorists. Chuck, I put this up. I put your videos up, and I put this in my magazine because I simply couldn't have said it better.
Well, I appreciate it. There's so many problems we have, so many different vistas and things that are coming at us. It can be overwhelming. It really can. And a lot of times, we get burnt out. You do this stuff for a while, and then you say, "Well, what the hell?" How many times have you quit, Clay? I know I quit half a dozen times. I always end up coming back, though. Something will piss me off. And the first YouTube I ever made is called "Covering My Ass," because I was going to get in a fight with my city over my chickens. And so I thought, well, let me get a little bit of visibility here. And that is probably another thing that people need to think about, is if you have an internet presence, it makes you a little less convenient to go after, because then your stuff goes viral. If they do kill you, then your stuff goes viral. And that's your legacy. And that's a lot more legacy than most human beings ever have.
Well, I've got the magazine that I put out for 20 years, and I've looked back, and this is kind of what I did in this publisher's column in this month's issue that I just sent out by email to everyone to read. It's they've tried to stop me, and some of my friends. One of my friends is John Trockman. And after I got out of the hospital, he did the militia of Montana, and I called him up and I said, "John, what are you doing now, man? I'm out. I'm out of the hospital, and I'm going to try to bring the Free American back." He said, "I'm selling advertising for a little local newspaper. I'm not doing anything anymore." "How can you quit?" What? He said, "Clay, we tried to tell them what NAFTA was going to become. We tried to tell them what the bankers were doing to us. We tried to tell them what FEMA was going to become. We tried to tell them about GATT. We tried to tell them about Waco. They wouldn't help us then. They won't help us now. So fuck them. They're going to get the government they deserve." And while I understand that, I could not do that. You can only lose if you quit. We've been in this battle for thousands of years, Chuck. This ain't a new thing. We've been in this battle for thousands of years, and that's the only value of the Bible. It tells you about that we've been fighting this battle for thousands of years. It's a little piece of history.
Well, history repeats over and over. If it doesn't exactly repeat, it sure as hell echoes closely.
If you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Yep. Well, how do we know what's going to happen? Well, just look at history. It teaches it. I mean, these people in Washington, I really need to file a Freedom of Information Act request, to the United States government in general, because I want a copy of that book that they're going by called Tyranny for Dummies. Because they're just following the same playbook that every tyrant always has. They just have the technology now to be better at it. But somewhere up there is a copy of Tyranny for Dummies. And I want to get a FOIA request filed and get a copy of that. Now that would go viral.
Well, Chuck, we have to stand against this. We have to stand against this. And now that I'm back in Texas, we're almost neighbors now.
You're way the hell down south. It's a big state.
Yeah, yeah. That's right. You're up in the Fort Worth area, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's where I was born, and I opened the first head shop in Arlington, started the whole paraphernalia industry, so, but all of the information that you put out on these videos is right here in the Free American. This magazine is not just mine. It's yours too. Right now. Right now. You know, it's...
Well, I would encourage people to just, you know, I don't monetize anything, and if people want to make those YouTubes the same ones, just read that narrative into a YouTube. I'd love to have that narrative, you know, those words with a lot of different faces. If I could get enough people together to record just parts of it, I'll put together a montage. I'll edit the video to make a montage and have maybe 25, 30 people, you know, cutting in. Although that is a good-looking guy on those YouTubes.
Yeah, you're pretty good for you're pretty good for an old guy, you know.
I have to work real hard to get the lighting just right.
I like the cowboy hat. I mean, you know, I'm still a dyed-in-the-wool Texan. I don't ride with a helmet. I ride with a cowboy hat, a Harley Davidson cowboy hat.
And keeping it on is a trick at 60 miles an hour.
Nah, they got the little thing. I got one of those little bolo ties that I just put through the hat, and so my hat, it's a Harley hat. It's the brim is wired,